Look, I know how this looks like, but this time I really didn't do anything bad, I swear. Please listen to me. At the end of the last video, I told you that I have opened up the server to anybody who can find it. And it happened. People found it. And now I'm here, imprisoned again. Maybe I made a mistake opening up the server. Let's have a quick look into the server logs. I'm running the Docker Minecraft server, and so I can look at the server logs with docker compose logs and -t to get the timestamp of the log entries, and then pipe the output into grep to filter for joined messages. On the 1st of April, this is when I opened up the server. And look at that, the first person to join was Process. He does a lot of technical Minecraft research, and we have been talking a bit, and he actually has access to the Copenhagen tool. So he just looked up my IP and joined. But I consider using Copenhagen cheating, it doesn't count. After that, it actually took a while for somebody else to join. On the 22nd of April, TK2217 joined. This might have been the first legit person to discover the server. I couldn't find much about them, but there's this GitHub profile. I'm a Java and Rust developer, mainly working with Minecraft, among other things such as Discord bots. So this person does seem to be related to technical Minecraft, but I've never heard anything else from them. But then a day later, Jim the Scientist and I'm a LOL Noob joined. Here's how it happened. So after I released the first episode, I was regularly checking the logs, and one evening I was just brushing my teeth ready to go to bed when I noticed them online. So I had to go online as well and ask them how they found the server.
I saw when you were typing out a command, at first I thought it was a local IP address, and then I realized it wasn't.
Wait, I showed the IP address in my video?
Yeah, you did.
No way.
Yeah.
I looked at it like a... No way. Are you kidding me? Okay, wait, I need to check. And yes, indeed. In episode 3, I showed off a proxy command and my IP was right there at the start of the video. Oopsie. And this episode was released on the 20th of April, which means TK2217 probably also just saw the IP there. But that makes it even more crazy. The IP was up for tens of thousands of people to see, and basically only 2 people noticed it. Oh well. Since then, I used the YouTube built-in editor to blur the IP again, so no need for you to check. But this reminded me again how at the beginning of my channel I tried to stay anonymous, but I always effed up. Email address in SSL certificate, Wi-Fi SSIDs, doxing with Wiggle, or simply my voice. If you actively participate in online communities, it's almost impossible to stay anonymous forever. So let me tell you, don't do any crimes, you will screw up at some point. Anyway, me leaking the IP was not the only thing they told me about.
We had used the scripts for finding usernames. There's an entire database of usernames.
There's one we built separate from Heimer. We started about a year earlier. We just didn't advertise anything at all. And we didn't go on massive public raiding sprees.
Turns out they have been doing Minecraft server scanning for quite a while as well. And so they could also query the database and look for servers where I was playing on. And they found an older server where I used to play on with my girlfriend and her niece. But that one was properly locked down with an allow list. Anyway, fun times. So welcome to the server. This is a communist server, so take anything you need from the chests and do whatever you want. And they did whatever they wanted. I went to bed, and this is what I woke up to. I'm imprisoned again, at least this time it's not bedrock. Welcome to our dungeon. We are not that good at torturing people, so we made some puzzles instead. Have fun. Make sure to set your spawn before jumping. Let's do that and put all our stuff in the chests. I only keep the Club Mate because I need it. I'm addicted. Anyway. Let's see, we need to drop down, and it seems like we need to jump in one of those water holes below. Okay, looks aligned, let's see. Oof, respawn, let's try this again. Maybe with different camera? Ouch, okay, this seems a bit more difficult than I thought. Let's head into super fast speed run. There we go, we made it. Let's pick up our stuff. And oh my god, this was not water. I kept jumping on this blue lapis lazuli block. Pretty funny, I'm such a Minecraft noob. Anyway, I got my Club Mate again, so we can continue. Cool, you made it out alive. Now let's see how good you are with mazes. This is just a simple maze. Seems easy, right? Nothing here. Oh yeah, for sure that's the right way. But let's quickly check the other direction. Wrong way. Yep, told you. Let's go back. Always stay hydrated on caffeine. It seems the door is locked. Can you see anything on the other side? But there's probably a button or lever somewhere. Let's see. Oh yeah, there it is. Found it. There we go. The door is open and we can continue. Okay, I guess we have to swim up this water here. Control? I'm not a Minecraft noob. Don't tell me how to swim. I knew that. So, yeah, let's swim up the water stream. So, what do we have here? It's not that easy, silly. A button and a trapdoor. Ooh, and here is a sign. Lava is your friend. So let's stand here and we will crouch to get in. Ah, right. Cannot open an iron trapdoor without redstone. So I'm trapped in the water now. Uh-oh. Where do we need to go? Are these air pockets at the ceiling? Can you breathe in them? Doesn't look like it. Oh, oxygen is running out. Crap. Drowned. Respawn. It's time again. Super fast speed run. So easy. Okay, we are back at the trapdoor. Let's try the water maze again. First of all, we have to find my Club Mate again. That's most important. And oxygen is getting low again. At least we got the mate. And look, there it goes down. There's lava. That must be the way out. Yes, we fell through the lava. Cool, we made it. Let's take a sip of mate and continue. Bubble elevator going up. And look at that cool room. Iron doors, they don't open. But here are levers, 5-bit input. We probably have to find the correct input and the doors open. 5-bit, it's not too difficult to brute force, but is there maybe a way to figure it out? With the glass we can somewhat see where the redstone signal goes, so I tried some different configurations. Maybe not all levers are connected anyway? I played around here for a while, but I couldn't figure it out. So I started brute forcing, and that was really lame of me. There was actually a way to figure it out, and that was really clever. I'm just too dumb and I didn't notice. I'll tell you about it later. For now, let's continue. The doors are open. Parkour. Oh no, I've never really done Minecraft jumping puzzles. This took me a long time. But it was really fun to see how I slowly got better. At the beginning, I couldn't even make the basic jump, but later, that was no problem at all. After a while failing around, Imalolnum came over and watched me as well. I started to get higher and higher, and one time I fell down part of it and noticed this sign. I didn't see this before. This jump will make you angry. It's called a Neo. So it's like a Matrix Neo jump around the corner. Luckily, I found a bypass. I always just jumped straight to the ladder. Anyway, let me show you the whole jumping puzzle. There we go, easy, first try. Okay, so what do we have here? 3 iron doors. The final quiz. What level was the dropper hole dug to? The door opens when you stand on a pressure plate, but they are iron doors, so you cannot go back. So, was the hole dug down to y level -10, 16 or 20? Let's try to be smart about it. The hole was pretty deep, but not that deep. I think the floor was not deep slate, so it probably wasn't y level -10. So was it 16 or 20? 16 or 20? Let's take the middle. Time to go find out how deep the hole we dug is. See ya soon. I want to kill myself. God damn it. Now I have to do everything again? Super fast speed run. Okay, we are back. 20 it is. Congrats on making it to the end of the puzzle. Jim the scientist and I'm a lol noob. Wow, that was so much fun. Thanks so much for being productive on the server, building something really cool for me. I really appreciate it. I actually had replay mod running the night they joined as well, so I could record anything they do. And so here it is. Let me show you how they trapped me and built the puzzles. They told me later that they used Baritone, which is a pretty powerful Minecraft bot that can dig holes like this automatically. Oh, and regarding the pin code room, they actually wrote XOR on the walls. And on the ground there was the XOR encoded solution. 1 XOR 1 is 0, 0 XOR 1 is 1, 1 XOR 0 is 1, 1 XOR 1 is 0, 0 1 is 1, and 1 0 is 1 as well. There we go, 0 1 1 0 1 1. It was really cool to see the time-lapse of this. They spent so many hours building this. And of course, somehow I wanted to make sure that this is playable by other people. And as you have seen, they built this right under their main base. So I decided to provide an entrance through a small well. So here is the Well of Death. When you jump in, you drop into the jail and you can play it yourself. Cool. Now there's one more thing. I'm a lol noob actually cracked the server seed as well. He sent me a video how he did it. As you can see, he's playing with a cheat client. He has some stuff active like Kill Aura, which probably is responsible for killing the zombie in my iron farm. Anyway, he's using a Seedcracking mod. It seems a bit magical. He's flying around the map and looking for structures like a witch hut, villager outpost or an igloo. And at some point it finished searching for structure seeds and here it is. This is indeed my server seed. It's not quite the one shown in my video. That one started with LiveOverflow, but this is basically the actual underlying real number seed of the server. Pretty crazy, right? By the way, in case you are curious, the mod he is using is called SeedcrackerX by xMrX98, and that is a fork from Captain Wutax's Seedcracker mod. Really cool stuff. Anyway, I'm a lol noob is not the first one to crack the seed. Actually, xMrX98 himself was the first one to figure it out, but with a different method. He did it without joining the server. But before I tell you that story, I want to share another super creative technique for how you could have figured out the seed as well. In the first episode, I blurred the screen when I entered the seed. For a human, this input is not readable, but the color of the big pixels is influenced by the original image, right? For example here, guess which blurred text is ... and which one is XXXX. It's pretty obvious, right? The dot is less white than the X, so the pixelated output is less white as well. This means while it's not obvious what text there was, this pixelated output still carries information about the original text, and this is attackable. So I got an email from Sebastian Luft where he exploited exactly that to recover the seed. Look at this. He is brute forcing the seed digit by digit. It takes less than a minute and he recovered the original seed from the video. Here's proof. He created this world and yep, this is the spawn area. So how did he do it? Here is the code. First of all, there are a few functions to interact with the game itself. For example, here is code where he copies and pastes text into the Minecraft seed input by literally simulating key presses of Ctrl+V. Anyway, up here is the main loop, and here he goes through all digits. So this code takes a guess, maybe it was the number 0, it enters the whole seed, LiveOverflow 0, into the seed input field, waits a moment, then creates a screenshot of the screen and then pixelates it. This function goes over the screenshot, calculates an average color for multiple pixels and draws a bigger pixelated rectangle over it. So this code basically pixelates the screenshot. And then you can compare it to the real pixelated image, a reference image. The reference images are actually frames from my video where I type the seed digit by digit. So he compares his guesses, like LiveOverflow 0, with the reference image, and the digit with the smallest error, so the smallest difference, is the best candidate. And LiveOverflow 6 has the smallest difference, which means the first digit was probably a 6. And you can automate this. Here is the result. Amazing. This is exactly why I pixelated the seed. I was hoping for somebody to try it this way. So thanks, Sebastian. That was awesome. But now let's talk about how the seed was found the first time. When I made the first episode, I contacted a few people from the seed cracking community I had talked to before, and they assembled a small group. Yeller Yure, Dragon Tamer Fred, Xapple, and 19 Mr. X98. Remember, he's the developer of the seed cracking mod shown earlier. I was able to lurk in the group chat where they brainstormed ideas of finding the seed, and eventually Mr. X shared the screenshot. That was quick, 6414920. This is indeed the seed. So here's Mr. X telling us how he did it.
I guess I can start with the first step, and that's building what you see on the video or the picture. In this case, you started in this forest, and yeah, I just built up some trees and some grass.
Okay, step 1, look at the footage of my first episode and pick a spot where you can somehow see some trees and grass and rebuild the area. So what's next?
And in the next step, I'll figure out how the grass is aligned here. As you can see, not every grass block has the same rotation, and that actually only depends on the coordinates of that grass block. So if I break that and place it again, the rotation will be the same for that position in every world. Basically, you can figure out the rotation, and based on that, you can brute force the coordinate.
Wait, what? Okay, so if you pay very close attention to the textures of grass, you might notice it's not always the same rotation. This is done so the grass looks less repetitive. And have a look here in the render block method of the block renderer manager. So this renders a block at a certain position, and this position is passed into getRenderingSeed. Following down the call chain, we arrive at this hashcode function, and it takes in the position X, Y, and Z, performs some calculations, and returns a number. There is maybe a mathematical reason why they specifically use these values, but it's not really important. Don't get distracted by the weird numbers. It just calculates something and returns a number, and it all depends on the coordinates X, Y, and Z. Then later, that number, when we go all the way back and following into the other functions, it's actually used as a random seed. But what is a random seed? A random seed is a number used to initialize a pseudo-random number generator. Sounds fancy, but it's easy to understand if you just play with it. Here I'm using Python and I'm initializing the random number generator with a seed. And then I can let the number generator generate numbers. Please generate me a random number between 0 and 99, we get 13. Generate me another number, 37, and another, 42. And the cool thing about random seeds is that when we reinitialize the number generator with the same seed, we get exactly the same numbers. That's why it's pseudo-random. It looks random, but it's not really random, right? If you know the seed, you know exactly the numbers it will generate. And that's how Minecraft world generation works. Let's say this first number decides that you spawn in a birch forest, and the second number means that there's a village nearby. That's why you can give a Minecraft world seed to somebody else and they generate exactly the same world. So coming back to the Minecraft code, here in the code we just saw that when rendering a single block, it does not use our world seed. It only uses the coordinates of a block. And the random number generated from this is used to determine the orientation of the grass texture. This means if you know the orientation of grass in a screenshot, you can brute force what coordinates led to exactly the texture orientation. Actually, let's go back to my simple example so I can explain to you how you can brute force a seed. Well, don't you think my random numbers look a bit suspicious? 1, 3, 3, 7 and the answer to everything 42? What a coincidence. Or maybe not. Here's how I did that. I wrote a small brute force script. In this test method, I take a seed and then generate the 3 numbers A, B and C. And then I check if the numbers are exactly what I want. I call this test function in this loop below and I just iterate over thousands and thousands of numbers until I just happen to find a seed that generates exactly those numbers. Running this just takes a second and we figure it out. And that's basically what Mr. X did for the coordinates and texture rotation.
Yeah, I've written a little utility for this a while ago. It's a little texture pack that basically retextures other blocks that can be manually rotated to grass texture. For that I can use the in-game item debug stick. You can see I can rotate this log. Yeah, I can click it, on those and change the texture, and I can compare to the video and see does it match up. If it matches up, I go to the next block, do this for a few blocks, and then I can switch to another resource pack that basically tells me, okay, those block positions match to those numbers in the code. So in the code there's random number generator that's fed by the coordinates. Then there's a next integer with 4 values that can come out. And yeah, based on that, the grass is rotated and I can see those numbers.
But there's just one caveat. You have to make sure you also know the correct overall direction. What is north? What is south? It could be rotated. But there is another trick for that.
Of course, we don't know directly which rotation we've built this in. Maybe this is not the direction that you were facing originally. And we can figure out the rotation by looking at top texture rotations on blocks that don't have texture rotation. So that's a thing in Minecraft that only some blocks have rotating textures and others don't. And yeah, those tree leaves all have the same orientation. And based on that, we can figure out, okay, the tree leaves top texture in the videos look different. I think they were rotated like this. So I've got a correctly rotated map of what was in the video. And now I can input those texture rotations into my program.
As you can see, these integer numbers generated from the random number generator decide the orientation. With this texture pack, he can visualize this very well. We also know this forest was close to spawn, so we can now just go through all coordinates, maybe a few hundred blocks around spawn, and for each position we could check the theoretical orientation. So if one coordinate used as a seed correctly results in the number 3, then we can check the next coordinate. Maybe here x plus 1. If that also generates a 3, then we go y minus 1 over in that direction. And if those coordinates are indeed correct, the seed should generate 2. Does that make sense? Let's have a look at his code.
Yeah, basically we have now a start point and then I'm just counting. So yeah, it's one block in the X direction, one block in the Z direction, one block in the Y direction. So this has the XYZ 1, 1, 1 and the rotation 3.
It's very similar to the brute force code I wrote, defining the goals of the random numbers we want, right?
Yeah, the program basically iterates over every block in this range in the parameters. And looks, okay, does this match? And if it doesn't match, then it goes to the next block.
Just brute force all coordinates x, y, and z, and then we go over all blocks we have defined and get the texture orientation. getTextureTop calls getCoordinateRandom, and this is exactly the function we saw in Minecraft earlier. So we just prepare the seed based on the coordinates we currently check, and then get a random value between 0 and 4. And then we can see if it matches the expected texture orientation. Letting this run, and that's when he wrote me on Discord, got chords. So this piece of forest is in my world at around 68, 69 and -94. Crazy. By the way, you can find his texture rotation tooling on GitHub if you want to have a closer look at the code. Okay, now he knows the coordinates, but this is not the world seed. So how can we get that? The answer is trees. He cracked the seed with trees. So here he put the piece of the forest at the correct coordinates and is now mapping out the trees as seen in the video.
Of course, we have now the right coordinates, but we can't do much with that alone to get a seed. Basically, everything that's not your typical terrain, so those blocks also, is generated per chunk. So trees are generated per chunks, those grass blocks, and everything that decorates the chunk gets generated per chunk. And that's why we need to figure out how chunk aligned everything is. We have chords, so we can do that. So this chunk starts here, most negative chords. And we map out every tree in this chunk to later iterate over every single seed. Does this seed generate the trees at those same positions?
You probably wonder, like me, what those glass blocks mean. So I asked him.
We should probably explain how a tree can generate. Basic oak tree generates 4 high to 6 high. Then it generates this leaf formation. I think it's pretty simple, but those corner leaves and those leaves here are actually not generated everywhere. As you can see, they have a 50% chance, and everything relates to the world seed. So it's actually pretty important that we keep track which leaves generate and which don't. And for me, as a normal person, I can't remember if that leaf is there or not. So I place glass blocks there if it's not there. And I know that. If I don't know, I place red wool.
Yes, he carefully copied exactly the trees from the video. But to understand why, we need to learn a bit more about how Minecraft generates trees.
Minecraft generates stuff per chunk. And we first need to figure out what this chunk seed is for everything that generates in that chunk. In Minecraft, the game simply takes the most negative chords of that chunk. So in this case, it's 64 and -96, and plugs that into a simple formula with the world seed. This is the population seed, and we can look at the code. It's first that's the world seed, then it does one nextlong, and then it does another nextlong, and then it multiplies the x chord with the first nextlong and the z with the second nextlong, and yeah.
So a Minecraft world is divided up into chunks. A chunk is 16 by 16 blocks, and for each chunk, Minecraft generates various stuff, like decorations. So for each chunk, Minecraft creates a chunk-specific seed, also known as the population seed. So this is again the random code taken right from Minecraft. It's just how Minecraft generates a specific seed for each chunk. Minecraft doesn't do much with this population seed though. It now uses that to derive a decorator seed.
Yeah, this class, basically the main class for generating a chunk. And we have this method that generates the features of that chunk. And this got messier over time. In earlier versions, this was a lot more readable. But in general, we have some steps. In each step, we generate some features. This method, structure generation and decorator generation. Yeah, here you can see how the game sets the population seed. Then this part here is for structure generation, where the game searches for structure starts and places structures. And the structures are like desert pyramid and a woodland mansion and so on.
Let me quickly summarize what we have so far. So when Minecraft generates a world, it all starts with the world seed. This world seed is then used together with chunk coordinates to create a seed per chunk, also called the population seed. And then for each possible decoration inside a chunk, like trees, we now derive a decoration seed from the chunk seed. The code really gets messy and I don't want to show it in all detail. It's Java, you can read the code yourself. But it should be clear why we read the generation code, right? We want to figure out how the random numbers are generated that decide if leaves are placed or not. And here is some code related to oak tree generation.
We have our chunk placer where we get the height of the tree. Here we have our base height, which is 4 in the case of oak wood. Then we have our first random height, which is 2 in the case of oak wood, and our second random height, which is 0 in the case of oak wood. So we can count, okay, we have 2 random calls in this method already. Then we can check out the foliage placer. Remember, we have all these leaves that require random stuff, and here we have the generate method of the foliage placer of the tree. Yeah, this basically shapes the tree, and for every y height that leaves generate in, then we call generate square. So in the upper 2 we generate a 3x3 square, and in the lower 2 we generate a 5x5 square. And in the corners of those squares, iterate over all the blocks in that square. And we now need to check how a position is invalidated.
And look at this function. So is invalid for leaves calls random.nextLong for the 50% chance if a leaf generates in a corner or not. So this adds more random calls. And there are a few more random calls to do stuff, for example, generating vines on trees. Anyway, the point is you carefully have to look at all the calls that generate a random number and then simulate exactly the same operations.
And that is what we do here. First we have our input data, x and z of the in-chunk coordinates, then the tree height minus the 4 height absolute value, so we get the pure random output. And then we have the 12 configurable leaves. 0 if it's air, 1 if it's a leaf, and -1 if we don't see that in the video. We initialize a bunch of randoms, and here we have our big loop that iterates over every seed.
I think you get it. We now just test every seed and check the random number generation if it would generate the trees with the specific leaves missing. And that's how he cracked the seed. By the way, it's not always possible to do brute force on Minecraft seeds, but in this case it was possible. That's because I used a text seed. A text seed is converted to a number seed via Java's hashcode function, and this only returns an integer, which means there are only 4.2 billion options, and that is quite doable with brute force. Also, once you brute force the number seed, you can then write another brute force tool to find the correct LiveOverflow text seed that generates the seed. The Java hashcode is very easy to collide, so you can actually find many strings that result in the same hashcode. But this one was the one I really used. I know there are a lot more crazy seed cracking techniques involving some cool math, but to be honest, that goes over my head. But I link some amazing videos from Matthew Bolan below. If you want to have a reason to get excited over high school or college level math, watch those videos. They are awesome. Anyway, see you next episode.